When one looks at the history of UFOlogy and the studies and reports of UFOs, particularly older reports such as from the time before the invention of the atom bomb, the appearance of flying objects in the sky often differ from our current sort of sci-fi-like technology and visual representation of UFOs. They took other, various forms, like sometimes literally sailing ships in the sky, or just things that didn't look like flying saucers or spaceships. Can you explain why this shift has happened and why we see more technologically based flying objects in the sky versus what was previously perceived and accounted for in folklore or historical religious accounts? And how is this sort of shift related to our spiritual progress as a society?
We are those of Quo, and have received your query, my brother. We would start by assuring you that our preference for craft is not so changing as is the seasons of your fashions upon your world. For we do certainly evolve, as do our negative brothers and sisters, upon a constant deepening of our awareness of the Creator and our refinement of our ability to manipulate consciousness for the purpose of service to others. Whether that is an outer technology or an inner technology, as we learn to use light, and as we ourselves become that light, we do evolve, we do change, but in our interaction with your peoples, the form that the craft takes is not so much indicative of evolving technologies on our end, but rather, how we calibrate our service in a way which may, for those of us of the positive polarity, more non-invasively interface with those of your world in a way which also may catalyze and inspire. The seeking and the sense of a great mystery of the beyond, of that which is not of this world but which is within some bounds of understanding. There are many ways we could attempt to appear to you, or in your skies, in the historical journey of your world which could not even be computed on an intellectual level. For there would be no frame of reference, no means even to conceptualize what it is that is being seen. So we must appear in some forms that are as familiar to you as nature is itself or which are unfamiliar, but still recognizable to some degree that they invite the contemplation and the seeking, that they may excite the senses and awaken entities from their slumber of habit and circular thinking such that the attention peeks through the curtain and then finds its heart asking questions. If one seeker wishes to take into contemplation the evolving nature of these shapes, which we would remind those receiving our words that many such shapes are not those of the Confederation but are of other both terrestrial and non-terrestrial sources, as we prefer the least invasive route possible and often seek to operate through other means, such as channeling or the dreams, the seeker may fruitfully consider, just as they would with any marker of change, what it reflects back about the nature of the individual and the collective consciousness. Does this changing craft indicate a greater openness or a greater closedness to this phenomenon? Do these craft indicate an increase in the sophistication of the thinking of your peoples? We would, as in the case of the dream, ask the subject what comes up for them. What other feeling tones? What thoughts arise? As they contemplate the role and appearance and impact of these things which seem to appear in your world, what opportunities for a service do such phenomena open? What implications does it have for the societal worldview, neurosciences, philosophies, religions, etc.? What might be learned or understood in some aspects of how and to whom and to where such things manifest? Just as is the natural world around you, so too is the world beyond the second and third density, or beyond your space-time, offering always reflections and clues and messages about the nature of reality, about its boundaries and what lies beyond. The appearance of such phenomena are not accidental and are even more conscious and more intentional than is the second density being who may cross your path at the right moment. This is true for both those who would enslave and control and those who would seek to empower with love, non-judgment, and acceptance. We are those of Quo and have received and appreciate this far-reaching and multifaceted query, which on our own level, even outside of channeling, challenges us in terms of how best to approach and relate to and serve your people, as your peoples are a highly volatile one. It is quite difficult to predict what mode of service would be most efficacious for us and for you in eliciting a greater awakening to love and to the powers of non-judgmental acceptance that is the key to working together, that you may, as a society, participate more directly and consciously in the universe, in your neighborhood, with and among other sources of intelligence, that you may finally breach your isolation. It is difficult for us, and made all the more challenging that, as you know, we too have a loyal opposition who, for every act we seek to make, seeks themselves a counter-action, their objectives being to wield and preserve power where it can be exercised by those of the elite to reduce transparency, to sow seeds of that confusion that blends with fear and paranoia such that power used in the dominating sense can be exercised. Those of our negative brethren have quite a fertile field within which to exercise their machinations in this regard, as your governmental powers, corporate, and military authorities have worked to keep such understandings undisclosed to your peoples, creating an ambience of misinformation, disinformation, and true information that becomes very difficult for your discerning minds to navigate through, and to know into which category or categories any particular piece of data may fall. It is a fraught landscape for both, or rather all parties, those of your world and those of the higher densities, both positive and negative. That which the positive polarity seeks to break, to use your term, is that which keeps the self enslaved to concepts and limited ideas about who and what the individual self is, and who and what the societal self is. If those of the positive polarity are to break, it is in service to healing, it is to break those shackles clasped tightly around the wrist or the ankles, or the blinders which the self has placed over the self-size. Breaking is not sought to sow chaos or create greater harm or disintegration such that your peoples lose the capacity for coherency and coherent collective action. Nor at the same time, do we necessarily seek to treat your world as fragile. We seek the least interference possible with those of your people that we may safeguard the free will of all involved, that we may not artificially, so to speak, influence the evolution of your peoples and the choices that only your peoples can make. We attempt to operate only within the bounds of the sanction offered by the request for service, which may be articulated by a need, by an awareness, by a broadening of understanding that opens the door for our operation. We have no, so to speak, engineering designs, social or otherwise. We have only ourselves to offer, our information, our service, our energies. We have attempted and will continue to attempt offering ourselves in service in this regard. When, if, and how such service is accepted will, of its own, by the nature of such dynamics, create ripples and have consequence for that which, as is true in any evolutionary sense, even minus higher density beings accepts a new reality or resists a new reality. Open-mindedness has not always been the hallmark of your peoples or your institutions. Though you grow ever forward in that journey, many are also the regressive energies very much active and alive upon your world which would move in the other direction, closing down and building the walls higher. We are Quo, and we offer our gratitude to this circle for the invitation issued to us to join you in your endeavors and your experiment. We would take this opportunity to share our perception that each act of service, whether in the form of a channeling circle, such as this, or any other expression of the self done with a genuine desire to serve others, is measured by the intention within one's heart, and that so long as the step is taken and the attempt is made to serve, the metaphysical influence resonates with the power of the one infinite creator, which can be made manifest through this act, whether it is apparent or not. Based on the outcome of the attempt, we leave you as we found you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We are Quo. Adonai, Vosu, Boragus.